Alright, I really didn't want to get involved with this right now, but I got no choice. There's a latch that holds these seats up against the back of the package tray, and I have to figure out whether I'm going to be able to use that latch on the package tray or whether it's going to have to be, the seats are going to have to be trimmed down lower, and I'm going to have to move the latch. So basically, first thing I had to do is take the cover off. Comes off relatively easy, goes back on not that easy, just so you know. There's a little piece of two little pieces of J channel back here on the bottom, and you can see they're one's attached to the top of the back side and the other one is to the piece that wraps around the bottom. And they basically, you have to stretch this out and get this one hooked back into here when you're done. Boy, I tell you what, I had to do it on the last set of seats because of some issues that I had with the way the upholsterers did the job. And I guess there's a special tool for this. It ain't easy. So anyway, then there's a couple of zippers on either side. They don't have any pull piece like you would have on your coat, obviously. You see it right there, so you just got to get something to hook into the zipper like that and unzip the two sides. Then as you're peeling it back on the front side, so this is the front side of the foam. There's these little orange clips that are embedded in the foam right here. Okay, you see them? There, and across the top here, up and across here. There's this little blue rib here that snaps in, and I don't have any idea how difficult that's going to be to push back in there, but anyway, you can see corresponding blue ribs all the way up the inside of the front seat, and you got to go along and you got to roll it up and get a screwdriver in there and pop them loose in order for you to get the face off. So now I've just got the seat cover. I'm going to see if there's any way I can remove this headrest, or if I have to do something with the entire top of the seat. Don't know yet. That's yet to be determined. First issue of the day is going to be determining whether or not I have to, where this, there's a little clip right here, and this little latch, just basically when you pull on this little fabric loop here, you can see that it unlatches the seat. So the minimum I can really cut the seat down is probably going to be somewhere to around here if I want to maintain this latch, which I do. So probably be able to take off at least this much of the seat from here down, and that'll help it look a little bit better and fit into the car. The other half of the seat, which is this is like a 2/3 type seat, has the armrest and everything in it, so God only knows what kind of complications I'm going to run into there. We'll see. Anyway, just thought I'd show you that. Alright, so this one's the same, except it's a little bit more complicated with this armrest. So first thing I'm doing is removing the armrest, which there's a little bracket, a little plastic bracket on the side here that's held in with a number 40 Torx screw. And I take that out, and then on the opposite side there's a pin. That pin slips in over here, so you just have to lift it up and pull it out. I can see already that because of the way this is constructed, that it's probably going to be easier, I say that now, but we'll see, to drop the seat down by trimming off possibly the bottom and resectioning the back plate together. I'm going to give it a lot of consideration before I do any hacking, because once you start cutting it, the backer is plastic, so it's not going to be easy to mend it back together. But as far as getting involved with trying to patch in, removing this headrest and a portion of the top and trying to repatch that all in, that's a job for a professional upholsterer. That I am not. Alright, so here's the beginning of my plan. This bracket here, which is the most complex because it holds the armrest, and it also continues down here to create the mount point and also the attachment point for the second side of the seat, or the left, or excuse me, the right side of the seat. I have to make this, I have to cut this off right here. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to remove the bracket first, since I have it marked. I'll make an adaptation point, an adaptation, so that this point here is moved up to here. The only thing I have to worry about is I probably have to cut this nut and stud down a little bit so that it doesn't interfere with the rotation of the armrest. We'll see how much of a problem that becomes and what I'll have to do if that doesn't work out. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. Take the distance. This is about 3.5 inches here, and that's about the difference that I need to drop the seat in order to get these headrests out of the window. We'll see how that goes. Okay, I got that bracket out of the back of the seat, and this is how the original bracket looks. Now, what I'm doing here is this cut line right here where I cut this off. I'm shortening the seat by 4 inches, so I basically measure up from the cut line 4 inches, and this is where this bracket needs to be located. Now, I don't need all of this. I only need a little slice of this in order to capture this little pivot point here. So I've cleaned off the edge of this existing bracket, and now that I can line this up like this, I can get a vertical line where I need to cut this and attach it right to this piece right here. Two things I have to be careful about is I have to be careful about the orientation. You can see that I have to get it level like this. So I have to, and I also have to maintain the height of this pin off of this surface here to make sure that I have the proper pivot point. So it has to be out in space over here. So I have to establish that and make sure that that's in the right spot as far as the height is concerned. Not too easy, it's a little tricky. Alright, so taking this bracket and just laying it back up on top of this piece here, that being how much I wanted to move it from here up to 4 inches here. I marked a new line here, which is represents the bottom edge of this bracket here, so that I have a reference point. Now, what I've also done is I've made up this little temporary piece here, and how that works is this is the piece that I cut off, and that's the point I want to relocate. So as you can see right here, I have a reference point here, and I can line this reference point up now on this bracket over here, and I can clamp it, and that puts my point of my pivot point out in where it needs to be as far as this is concerned. So that when I trim this up, I'll have this clamped to this, and I'll just through bolt that flange through this hole here, which is a 1/2 inch hole, and then I will weld up that bracket here, and hopefully that locates my pivot point up 4 inches from its original start point. Well, again, we have this right here, and I want to move it up to here, so I'll just end up with a little bit of a tab. So in order to locate that tab, first they came up with the bracket to give me a reference point from the bottom edge, which is this point here, to that point there, that lines up with this hole here. I got a mess going here one-handed. And then line it up with this purple mark, which is representative of that same spot, and that puts that pivot point out here. Again, this is just temporary to hold everything in place, so I can get that little piece of tab welded right there. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so that's basically what I was after. You see this little bracket's holding it in this spot it needs to go as far as where the pivot needs to be. Now, I say that's where it's supposed to be, but you know, there might be some interference with this pivot point here, with the seat folding down. I don't know that yet. I don't know what kind of problems that's going to cause by moving this so much closer to this other pivot point. So this is a work in progress. It's a 1/2 inch bolt going through to hold the whole mess together, and And now I can just unbolt it and take the whole thing off, and I've got that bracket where I need it to go. The other side's not doesn't have to be modified so much as the back of the seat where it mounts right here. This is the other pivot point that bolts up to the car. All of this has to be transferred to an area up here and then reinforced a little bit, because this is just a plastic double wall backer here for the seat. So there's really nothing except for the fact that this is kind of stamped in here this way and glued together to create a little bit of strength in this area. So when I move all of this up here, I'm going to have to strengthen this all up here in order for this to work. Anyway, we're going to move on from here and see what happens. Okay, I was worried about interference with those two pivot points, because this is the pivot point that holds the armrest to the back of the seat. But if it's mounted in the car this way, this is how it bolts down at this angle, slightly different, but pretty much like that. And then the seat back is up against the back of the package tray, and then it folds forward, so everything moves away from that pivot point that I was worried about. So I might have a little interference with this piece of plastic here to get it all the way, so I might have to shave that just a little bit to get it to, but I don't know. In the car it seems to work fine. At the worst case scenario, I have to shave a little bit of that plastic away. Anyway, on to the next thing. Alright, after cutting 4 inches off the bottom of this plastic backer for the seat, I decided to cut this corner off and save this corner, because it's pretty complex how this accommodates the hinge in the corner. So I made sure to keep the front intact, so I have something good to attach this to. And also, this was a double layer thick right in this area right here. So what I had to do is you can see I just ran it through the bandsaw and kind of got it down to about 1/8 of an inch, a single layer thickness, so that now that it flushes up with the back pretty well. It's a little bit proud, but I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. And then I have to align this up with the back bottom here, and that gives me, I'll have to drill out these 3 attachment points here. I'm going to glue this down with a little hot melt glue, and then I'll put some rivets through it to mechanically fasten it to this other piece of plastic. It's pretty stout stuff. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick on both sides, so you've got pretty good beef to rivet to. And it's not spongy plastic. It's a real rigid composite. Anyway, that's my next move. Well, that's how that worked out, which is not too bad. It comes out even with the top of the package tray. Of course, there's going to be a foam here built up about that far. Same with the headrest, so it's probably be about that big, but at least it's not into the window anymore. And it folds down just the way it normally would. My attachment point over here, which is the normal attachment point for these side panels over here, will have to move, because I have to locate the latch. You can see the latch mechanism right here, and you can see my attachment point here. It looks like there's going to be a little interference with me putting the latch right there, so that's not a big issue. That can be attached a number of ways. Anyway, on to the next one, which will have to have 2 of these corners where I cut them out and reset them, and hopefully everything will work out. We'll see what happens. Alright, so I did this one a little bit differently. I decided to incorporate the entire bottom of this piece. So you see I just kind of left this here to where I could glue this down here, so that's like a triple thickness there. And basically I cut 4 inches off the bottom, and then slowly did a little jigsaw puzzle to work this in. It turns out I really don't need any rivets or anything to hold this together, because you got through bolts going to hold the front and the rear pieces together, and this is, like I said, it's a pretty strong fibrous plastic. Yeah, it doesn't really require any other mechanical fasteners to hold these 2 halves together. Anyway, that's what I'm doing on that one. Okay, so that's both pieces in. They both operate the right way. Now I just gotta relocate those the latches to the back side of the front edge of the package tray, and move on from there. Alright, you can see that I've got this latch over here just temporarily screwed on. Normally this mechanism has a spring on the back side and it sits in a pocket. This one over here is not having a problem doing what it's supposed to do, which is to rotate freely like this one. That one over there a little bit more of an issue, so what I've done is on the other one, I'll show you in a minute, and I'm going to do it on this one also, is to create a little standoff to get it back up a little bit. These normally sit in a pocket, so where the spring mechanism is recessed a little bit. Now it's sitting on a more or less a flat surface, so it doesn't allow this to go freely back and forth like that. But you can see that it latches just fine, and pull on that little strap there, and away she comes. Anyway, I'm working on modifying that one so it works a little freer. Here's what I was talking about. There's normally a pocket that this thing sits in like this, and that allows this back portion here to rotate, and you can see it's got a little offset to compensate for the step here. Well, and you can see where if you put it up against something flat, that with that offset there, that this would rub at the pivot point right here. So what I've done is I've just welded a small piece of 3/8 tubing and cut it off to create a little bit of an upstand, to where now when I set it on something flat, I have enough clearance for this to rotate back and forth. Just a small modification. Other than that, surprised how easily it worked. Alright, I've already dogged out the sides here. In other words, there's a relief cut here at the bottom. I've dogged the sides out over here, clearance for the hinges. Now I've marked it at the very bottom of that panel, and I'm going to cut it off. Then I'm going to cut this section off here and glue it back to there, because this is what wraps around the bottom of that, and helps to transition the material around the bottom side. Alright, using an adhesive for foam, basically contact cement. I sprayed that surface and this surface, and I'll just, when it's done tacking up, I'll stick them both together. Alright, so that's what it looks like stuck back together. When I go to put the fabric back on, I'm going to have to abbreviate those ribs that snap into these things. You can see the track runs out right about here, so I have to cut them off before I even start covering it. So I'm recovering this now, and I said it was going to be a little bit of a pain to try and get these back into these little clips here, but it hasn't been too bad. You're able to work your hand in there, and as you can see, this piece it's tapered, and it fits into that little orange clip. But when you take it apart, those clips spread out, so what I've had to do is go back with some needle nose pliers and squeeze them back together so that this actually, it actually grabs. So anyway, learning as I go. Alright, I showed you those little J channels before that are supposed to hook together. Obviously, we've got 8 inches more material than we're going to be able to use to hook them together on the bottom, so that's not going to work out. What I was able to do is pull the material around. I cut the flange off the J channel, so now it's just a flat channel attached to this fabric at the bottom, and it works neatly to pull it up. And then I've just run some Tech screws into the back of this plastic. It's nice and tight. I've also cut off the excess material here. I've got to cut another hole to go into this pivot point over here, and then as you can see, this is just zipping down like this, and we'll figure out if we need to do anything more here. Maybe put some Velcro here, some self-stick Velcro right along here, so that it adheres to that. This just flops over and into the trunk and adheres to the floor of the trunk, so we really don't need to do anything with this, except possibly just tighten it up right down around here, and hopefully that'll be good enough. We'll see if we can get how tight these corners look on the front side after I get done. They're a little bit baggy right now. I don't know that I'm going to have to do anything with them yet, but we'll see. So we can zip it all the way down to there, and that'll tighten it up to some degree. And maybe we'll put something to keep the zipper from moving past that location. Just maybe a tie wrap or something through the fabric and right through the end of the zipper to keep it from unfurling. It has a stop here, but it's 4 inches down from where it normally would stop. Anyway, on to the next move. Okay, so what I've done here is I zipped that zipper strip all the way up. There's a long tail, and I took the tail and I pulled the tail all the way around to the inside to kind of pull the corners tight, and then I used a large safety pin to pin it to this piece of the fabric above this leather right here on both sides there, and I tightened up the corner pretty good. And then I took this other piece of J-strip off, being careful because it's stitched. The two pieces of material are stitched together here right where this is attached, so I was just careful to cut just on the plastic and free the stitches up where the plastic was in order not to free up this whole flap. You can see where it's stitched here. So this just lays in the trunk like a little transition piece. So anyway, that was the easy one. Let's see what happens next. I forgot to show you what the front looked like. That's what it looks like right there. Yeah, the corners, you know, not the greatest, but it's going to be tucked down there in the seat cushion right about here, so shouldn't be too bad. If that's the worst of it, that's okay with me. I haven't had to put a stitch in it yet, so that's a big plus. If you're wondering why I'm fooling with this and not just getting having an upholsterer do them, if you could find one that's available to do it, that'd be the first thing. Around here, for some reason or other, everybody's booked solid for months and months in advance, and they all want top dollar. You know, just doing something simple like this, they might charge me $1,500 to just do this back seat. So this took me about 5 hours to just do this, and some of the other work I've been doing today. So you know, the old Hot Rodders ethos, use what's at hand, and that's what we're doing with this car. Anyway, just thought I'd show you that. Well, with the armrest in place, it turns out I did have a little interference. This is a lock nut that holds this stud on over here, and so you can see it rubs on this armrest. So if this armrest was going to receive a lot of use, which, you know, like if you had a bunch of kids in the back seat, or if this was a front seat issue, we'd have to do something about making some kind of an adaptation to where this was smooth on the back side. Not sure exactly what I would do in that case, but being this is a case where this back seat is pretty much just decorative to fill out the back side of the car, I just cut the nut off very shallow, and I'll put some Loctite on that, and I may put a little sliver of Delrin over top of it just to keep it from tearing, but it's pretty smooth right now. It doesn't seem like it's going to be an issue. Anyway, that is something that, if you want this to operate on a frequent basis, would have to be addressed. Anyway. Alright, by cutting off 4 inches here, right underneath the armrest, there's nothing to support the foam. Like there's this follows all the way down to the bottom, so the foam's solid, so when you wrap, you know, you can make it neat. Over here, you know, the foam is on its own. It had no backer, so I had to add this piece of 070 with there's a 1/4 inch safety edge on the front, and it's rounded over so that it doesn't cut the material in the front. When I add the foam back to it, and it's screwed to the backer here, and that should keep that rigid, a nice clean line below the armrest. Okay, so that's the rear seat just horsed in there. Not everything tightened down, but everything operates as it's supposed to. It's 4 inches shorter, and it doesn't stick through the rear glass, which was the main thing, and we didn't have to take it to an upholstery shop, which is the secondary thing. So we're good to go there. And you can see over here it clears the tunnel black back glass just fine, so we have plenty of room. Go around to this side over here, you can see it also. We're good to go there with the headrest. It's not sticking through the hole. Anyway, on to the next thing. Yeah, never throw anything away until you're done with the job. This is the substructure for the package tray. This had the mount point for the trunk light. Mounts up inside there. Pretty bad design, if you ask me, as far as this the way this light bulb's held. I know this is pretty conventional for years for a lot of dome lights and things, but the only thing, it's held in tension between these two tabs. I had to overbend this to get this thing to catch, because obviously over the years, the vibration and everything, this thing loosens up. Anyway, the speakers back in, got the amp in, and of course I'm working on mounting the wires up to the bottom side there before I can proceed with building a package tray. I got the seats back out for now. I thought I could leave them in and work around them, but no dice. Alright, so I got the trunk light mounted, and spent probably a good couple hours laying on my back in there, getting all the wires plugged back in and tied up real neatly up at the top. So I got that going for me, as they say. And last little while has been dedicated to making this fun little piece here, and I'll show you where that goes. One of my favorite areas to work on is right in here, justifying all this nonsense that's going on. This panel, the top of that, getting it jacked up high enough to cover the speakers. So this basically ends up in this area right here, and it screws down right there. But that completes the corner of the inside the package tray. These are the package tray corners. Pretty awkward little spot to have to work on, in and out of the car about 150 times for that one little piece. And as with everything with the car, got to make another one for that side and try to match this as good as possible. Anyway, that's going to allow me to make the centerpiece in an easier to handle piece. I was going to try and make it all one piece, but then I started seeing what was going on, all this zigzagging in and tucking behind and all this, and I said, let me make a couple caps on either end, and then I'll just put a panel in the center. So that's what I've got to do. It's all coming up next. Alright, so I used a little silicone last night to glue some styrofoam, 1-inch styrofoam, to the backs of these package tray corners. And the reason for that is they're back there with the speakers, and I don't want to set up a vibration with this being made out of sheet metal. So that'll dampen that down a bit, take up some of the room that's underneath there. Anyway, just thought I'd show you that. Okay, starting out with a paper pattern to find out where my speakers were and the general overall shape of the edges and the front edge and how it relates to the window and everything. These are basically clearance holes to clearance out my sub-material underneath my package tray, so that's, you know, it's free for the speakers to come through audibly through the bottom of the package tray. Anyway, the next thing I did was I cut a piece of 1/8-inch masonite. It's a little bit denser than regular masonite. If you go to a home center, it's usually the stuff that's got paint on one side, but it's a very dark blackish brown material. It's very dense, and it's less susceptible to moisture. In fact, it's usually used for bathroom walls, that type of thing. Anyway, once I got the pattern established on here, I cut this out of the old package tray so that I didn't have to invent a new hole pattern for both the speakers. And then this is the amplifier, which also had some breathing holes in it, and this is actually from the amplifier, because these were actually metal screens in the other package tray. On the back side, what I did is build it up with this is a 1/2-inch thick fiberglass mat that's usually used underneath the hood. It was left over from my last project. So I put one layer down, clear and stout, around the speakers, and then this just builds it up the rest of the way. It's nice because it's not like foam. It's not going to dry out and crumble in the heat of the back window, and it's also compressible, which is what you would want to fit this in nice and snugly. After I got done with that, I went ahead and bent a piece of aluminum over the front edge that conforms with the angle of the piece of metal on the package tray support, and then I countersunk some rivets and mounted it to the top side of this, which once this is covered with, I've got a thick trunk liner, black trunk, slate gray trunk liner material that's going to go over top of this. Once that's covered with that, you shouldn't see any of this, obviously. I've got a couple of holes in the front here, 3 holes, which are just the thing would mount through the face. Also on the back side, I bent a rim of just some lightweight sheet metal here, some aluminum, and riveted it also to the back edge. And what this does is it tucks up underneath the window track. And this, because it comes up flush with the window track, once this is covered with fabric, there's no need for any kind of trim at the bottom. This just runs in snugly up against that window track, even with the opening for the window. I'll show you what this looks like inside the car. It looks like I got a little hot plate here. Alright, I thought I'd show you what this looks like from the outside. Here's the window bed right here, and this is flush with the window bed here, so there's no need for any additional molding at the bottom of the window. You see I have my package tray corners in place there and there, and you can see that this is where it fastens in the front, and that piece of angled sheet metal holds the whole thing down, and it automatically contours. So there's a slight arc in the back window, and it wants to spring up because of the foam. So once it's trapped under this curve over here, it just automatically contours with this. And with the addition of the fabric on the top side here, it should make for a pretty neat finish. These are going to get painted just like my end pieces over here, and that should finish this area here. I'm waiting on this fabric. I'm also waiting on the fabric for the headliner. The headliner is going to have a lot of body work done to it. It has to have a perimeter bead put in here to make up for this little L shape here, and a round over and into the window. Also, that'll make it so that it doesn't need any trim here either. It'll just roll right into the window bed. And so on to the next thing. Okay, I got this stuff in yesterday from a good friend, Dan Peacock. He's developing a kit for replacing these vacuum pods for operating the headlight doors on the car with these linear actuators, and one for each headlight. And this is a 12-volt bipole relay here. So be looking forward to messing around with this and see if I can't get it working the way he intended it to work. He's already got his set up pretty good. I'm just going to follow his lead, and hopefully somewhere along the line he'll get the components together and make these available. Anyway, I'm going to try it out and see how it works for me. Okay, so the fabric just came in for the package tray, and it's covered. It's basically a charcoal gray, dark gray for the that normally is used for a trunk liner fabric. Anyway, that's what it looks like covered up, and I'll show you what it looks like in the car. Alright, here's what the package tray corners look like, painted up, ready to go back in the car. I'll show you what they look like in the car with the package tray cover. Alright, so this is what it looks like from the outside of the car. The top of the package tray covered and installed. As you can see, it tucks underneath the window bed right here, so there's no need for any additional molding once the glass is in. And this is what it looks like with the corners in and painted up. And so now it completes the encirclement of the seats, and I'm done with that part of it. So
that's going to end this video for this week. Next week there may not be a video, depending on how much I get done, because I'll be away starting midweek until the beginning of the following week. I'm going up to Carlisle with the Daytona, so I'll take a little break from the project, and a little break maybe from making videos. If I have a little content between now and then, I'll put a short one up. Until then, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.